All right, what's up everybody? Today I want to talk to you about image optimization. Now websites are becoming increasingly visual and we're adding more and more image content to our sites. So we need to optimize those. And one of the ways to do it is using Eleventy's image utility. It's a low-level utility. You can perform build time transformations of your vector and raster images and will output picture or image markup for you because no one likes writing overly complex picture syntax. And we'll also generate a variety of output image sizes for you as well to provide the best visual experience for the huge variety of viewport sizes out there. Now in CloudCannon, it's very easy to add an image upload component to your site to allow technical and non-technical editors an easy way to add image content. And I've put together a very quick sample project that demonstrates this capability. Now, a common problem when you have people coming in and adding image content to your sites is that folks will add huge images. Now here's an example of the James Webb Space Telescope. And this is a fairly large image of the Carina Nebula from nasa.gov. I think it's about 16 or 17 megabyte, and we'll go ahead and save that to our project. Once that image is committed to our GitHub repository, it will run a build for us automatically. All right, and once that finishes, we can head over to the live view and refresh. Now, of course, the original was about 17 megabytes. It was a PNG, but Eleventy Image has created a bunch of different image files and formats and different sizes so that our visitors get an optimized image loading experience. So the picture syntax here is generated for us automatically, which is great. And this monitor that I'm using right now is using a device pixel ratio of 2. If we swap it back to 1, you can see that it switches to a lower resolution image, which I actually think is a bug in Firefox. It should never downscale to a lower quality image when it's already loaded a higher quality one. But I think that's a point of contention among web browsers. Chrome doesn't do that. If we resize to a smaller viewport and then refresh the browser, you can see that it loads the 800 pixel width AVIF version. And if we resize, you can see that it swaps out to the 1600 width. So this is a raster image. What happens when we upload a large vector image? Let's go back to our demonstration here and upload a new image. Now, one of the examples I've used in the past is the flag of Mexico. It's a very detailed SVG. And we'll use the one from Wikimedia. We have this prefer SVG checkbox checked here, and I'll explain what that does. So our SVG has uploaded. Let's look what it looks like. So in our live view of the flag of Mexico, we can see it's about 140 kilobyte input SVG. And what the Eleventy image plugin has done is resized it in our specified formats and preferred the raster versions of those because they're smaller than the SVG. When we go to a very small viewport width, you can see that the browser only loads 8 kilobyte, an 8 kilobyte AVIF, instead of the original 140 kilobyte SVG. And this works great. So we've solved the problem of editors uploading giant raster images and giant vector images, but let's take it a little bit further. What happens when we upload a medium-sized vector image? Let's do this with the classic Ghost Script Tiger. And we'll save it. And if we reload our site, we can see the new SVG Tiger. Now there's an interesting thing happening here in that the SVG was about 68 kilobytes, which was smaller than some of the raster images that we've generated for this particular instance. So what Eleventy Image has done is it's preferred the SVG when the SVG file size is smaller than the raster images. So you can kind of see here that we have the 400 width JPEG, WebP, and AVIF sizes, but at 800 width, we only have the AVIF because the WebP and JPEG variants of those were larger than the SVG. So Eleventy Image has discarded those and preferred the SVG when the file size makes sense. So in this way, the vector image is actually a progressive enhancement that we've layered on top of the raster images, the raster baseline that we've set, and that's for web performance reasons. So the larger our viewport gets, the bigger the rendered image, the more likely that the picture element will swap to the SVG automatically. So in this way, we get the best of both worlds. Our editors can upload images of any size, and we'll optimize those in the output, and they can upload vector or raster images, and they don't need to worry about file sizes. So our visitors get streamlined, optimized image loading with very little configuration. And if we go back to the source code of the project, we can see it in action. We have our image shortcode here that calls out to Eleventy Image. Here's what the shortcode source code looks like. It's using 4 different output formats. It's outputting 3 different image sizes. And here's our SVG short circuit feature, which will mix and match raster and vector depending on what the best performance experience is. One more quick tip I wanted to show you is that you can add your image output folder, the one that we're using to write the built images to, and you can preserve that between builds. So if we write our site optimized folder here and then save that in our preserved paths and the CloudCannon configuration, when it reruns the build, it won't have to start over from scratch when it's generating those output images. If you already know the aspect ratio of the image that you want to allow folks to upload, in the image upload component itself, you can set a width and a height and a resize style, which if you've used CSS object fit, this will look very similar to you. But this actually resizes the image on upload so that the image stored in your repository is smaller, which is a great feature. Another thing CloudCannon will do, if you're not using Eleventy image, CloudCannon will add the width and height attributes to the images so that it does set that correct aspect ratio to reduce layout shift when the image is being loaded. Using CloudCannon and Eleventy image in this way really provides a unique performance profile for your images with very little upfront configuration.